in London in 1975, there was a sense of the whole city winding down, no investment, no hope, just a city in decay and a city collapsing.
It's like a wasteland with just nothing. Where we had energy, we wanted to go somewhere, we wanted to do something. There was nothing to do, nowhere to go. So we just kind of circle around, walking underneath those sort of housing developments, projects, and concrete, soulless places where there's nothing. Sort of hopelessness. Well, we had hope in a sea of hopelessness.
It was a very, very squalid period, massive unemployment, absolutely no hope, class warfare rampant, quite literally no future. I wrote my own future. I had to. It was the only way out. I am an anti-coaster. I am an anarcho-coaster. Don't know what I want, but I know how to get it. I want to destroy, possibly, 'cause I want to be anarchy.
The story of punk really begins with Iggy Pop. He was authentic. That's the problem with rock and roll, that there's not many really authentic madmen in it.
I hated school. I hated being confined in office clothes. I hated the guys in the fraternities around the college campus where I lived. I just hated the whole American dream.
I am the passenger, and I ride.
Iggy took the whole ethos of the beat writer and made it applicable to modern music. People would lay him side by side with Jim Morrison. I don't think that's quite fair, because I think Morrison came from much more of a European mentality, where Iggy was so totally American, so totally Midwest.
Did the music of Detroit have much of an effect on your music?
The industrialism in Detroit. What I heard, you know, wandering around was, there are 10 cars, and so on. So
Sure.
I get a lot of my influence, like, from the Electric Shavers, and it's true.
You really? No, but it's funny how the sound, you don't realize how the sound is. What did you do to those nice people out there?
Iggy walked on people's hands. Iggy grabbed people out of the audience. Suffice it to say that Iggy was a lot more dangerous than Jim Morrison, who might be waving his penis around on stage in Miami. Iggy, you know, you thought that he might take the whole crowd with him.
Get into the car.
I wanted to have my stuff presented in a much more shocking way than the next fella, because the next fella was usually better looking than me. He could sing better, and they could get a better gig for more money, but the reason they could is because they would imitate the 5 most popular English bands at the time.
Remember,
it was obvious to me that person that could create something really of their own, that was the person that was going to have the key.
Do you feel you've influenced anybody?
I think I helped wipe out the 60s.
The American bands that were influencing me were the MC5, that was just a very heavy, brutal Detroit industrial rock ethic. You were supposed to go out and just kick the audience's ass, and everybody gets sweaty and gloriously beat up. When I first heard the Velvet Underground, it gave me hope. Here's a band playing super simple songs, and the singer couldn't sing, because I couldn't sing either. And I thought, this is great. He can't sing, I can't sing, let's sing.
When the Beatles were singing Yesterday, the Velvet Underground were singing songs about heroin. We're singing songs with real substance to them, real stories, real lyrics that gave you pause to think.
It was the height of the psychedelic era, right? They were giving out flowers on St. Mark's Place, and everybody was barefoot, and you brushed your teeth with LSD, right? But the Velvets talked about real life on the street, and they played noisy, crude. It sounded as if you didn't have to know how to play what the Velvets played. You know, obviously it's not as easy as they made it sound, but it was inspiring. The Dolls were an inspiration too.
Well, fuck with that, sweetheart.
The punk scene, most people think, started with the Sex Pistols, and the Sex Pistols defined it in the popular consciousness, but the Sex Pistols were influenced by the New York Dolls and aren't ashamed to admit it.
The New York Dolls came along and returned to the 3-minute song, you know, which was what punk is really all about, returning to the idea of a song that you heard on the radio. You know, very stripped down, chorus, verse, chorus, verse.
Music you were hearing on the radio in those days was terrible. Yeah, Captain and Tennille and all the crap.
I liked the way they were into what kids really liked about rock and roll, which was do whatever the fuck you want to, offend the grown-ups and behave like the way a teenager really wants to behave.
They were so bad. When they attempted to play rock and roll, I thought it was such a cacophonous racket that it made me laugh. And their sheer audacity of being able to go out on stage and deliver this to an audience, I thought was phenomenal.
When the Dolls came over and they played this really boring rock show.
The New York Dolls.
Wearing their high heels and like stuttering about and smashing their instruments. That was something we'd never seen before. And it was on television, even better. It was wild and young and crazy, and these people were having fun. That was a seed that later grew, I think.
Malcolm was here in New York, and he loved their style and their attitude and their aggression and the attention they attracted. He wanted them to come to England, and he could play them over there, and he felt they'd be a lot more popular. But it was too late for the Dolls, and they were really falling apart, and Johansson didn't want to play with half the band that was too drunk and stoned to play. So Malcolm went back to England. I mean, Malcolm was trying to sell clothes, basically. You know, he was selling fashions. And he sold rock and roll fashion. And so the best way to sell rock and roll fashion was to have a band.